Fox 10 Phoenix starts now.
A new round of protests in the valley as people take to the streets, upset over President Trump's immigration crackdowns. This video was shot by Sky Fox late last night as a demonstration in West Phoenix was breaking up. You can see a big police presence as well near 43rd Avenue in McDowell, with officers blocking the street to keep those protesters from reaching the freeway. Another march in downtown ending at the Arizona State Capitol. Demonstrators speaking out against President Trump's immigration policies.
So right now ICE is targeting migrants with criminal records, but the Trump administration has said in the past they could deport anyone who is in the country illegally. Danielle Miller brings us the details. Good morning, Danielle.
Good morning, you two. So there was around 1,000 people. It all happened for several hours here in downtown Phoenix last night. Those people marching to the Capitol. Take a listen.
No more ICE! No more ICE!
And those were the sights and sounds as demonstrators chanting, holding signs and speaking out against immigration enforcement. The march moving to the state capitol after blocking streets around downtown Phoenix. It even forced the I-10 to close briefly. Police were seen out on the streets out of their patrol vehicles to monitor the protesters and keep them from returning to the highway. There was also demonstrations held during the day in Phoenix. We also heard of others in Chandler and Mesa.
Viva Mexico!
So my dad came here illegally and he ended up getting his citizenship, but he also served in the Marines and he's worked for our government for over 20 years. And so I think it's important to know that there's this stigma that everyone that comes to this country illegally is criminals, but a lot of these people are hardworking.
And demonstrations just like this have been pretty common across the United States. All of this since President Donald Trump put his plans in place on the first day back in office. We can expect to see demonstrations like this in the coming days. We'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Danielle, thank you. New Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth making his first official trip to the border in Texas.
He says Mexico will need to do its part to stop the flow of illegal immigrants and fentanyl into the United States. Take a listen.
We want them to secure their own territory, their sovereignty, but we reserve the right, should there not be an ability to police international and violent cartels, to protect our own sovereignty as well. So we hope Mexico will step up. We expect they will.
So Mexico's president has committed to sending 10,000 troops to the southern border. Switching gears and taking a look at some of our other top stories on this Tuesday, the NTSB is pulling double duty investigating two separate deadly plane crash sites.
Yeah, one near Washington, D.C. and the other in Philadelphia. In that city, the number of people hurt has now risen. This video here gone viral on social media, and it is absolutely tragic. A medical transport jet crashed. Now reports are 24 people are hurt, up from 22. 4 are hospitalized, 2 in critical condition. 7 people were killed when that jet crashed shortly after takeoff Saturday. 6 of the victims were on board the jet. Another was on the ground inside the car. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy confirmed the black box was recovered and is now headed to the lab in D.C.
A little further to the south, recovery operations continue this morning near Washington, D.C., a week after the deadly plane and Black Hawk helicopter crash. Crews were lifting the wreckage from the Potomac River of the crash site. The first 2 engines of the commercial jet were removed, along with parts of the cabin as well. Yesterday, the NTSB provided an update on what happened just moments before the crash, sharing details from the audio recordings from the black box on board that American Airlines jet. Take a listen to what they had to say.
At 8:47:58, the crew had a verbal reaction, and FDR data showed the airplane beginning to increase its pitch. Sounds of impact were audible about 1 second later, followed by the end of the recording.
So it sounds like those pilots were trying to maneuver away from that Black Hawk at the very last second, but unfortunately it was too late. Authorities say the operation to remove the entire jet from the water will take several days. The NTSB hopes to have preliminary incident reports from both of those crashes completed within the next 30 days. Well, happening today in an effort to prepare for an emergency situation, Valley Airport will be conducting a full-scale emergency exercise. Dozens of volunteers and public safety workers will be at the Mesa Gateway Airport later on today for a simulation. This is all part of an FAA-mandated exercise, which must be done every 3 years. We'll have more in a live report coming up in our next hour.
Yeah, and it was already planned before we had some of these other tragic situations take place. Another Valley school district having some issues, but what's happening in the Liberty Elementary School District in Buckeye different from some of the others.
Yeah, enrollment is actually going up, but teachers are leaving the district, leaving them in kind of a bind. Irene Snyder joining us live with these details. Good morning, Irene.
Ty and Celeste, good morning. Now, Liberty Elementary School parents and staff are calling for two school board members, as well as the superintendent to resign. In addition to that, they've also started a petition and so far have over 2,000 signatures. Now, the district is made up of 7 different schools in Buckeye. There are roughly 5,000 students, but at least 17 teachers have resigned so far this year. Educators say they're leaving because of what they're calling a toxic culture of intimidation from the district level. They're speaking out against financial mismanagement, overcrowded classrooms, and the removal of education services.
Have pushed out well-qualified key district leaders, attempted to remove our most effective principals, and created an environment where teachers, counselors, and staff no longer feel valued or supported. The result, over 50 job openings before contracts have even come out.
In the past, teachers have had to pay $2,500 to get out of their contract in the district. The board voted to remove that policy just last night, and that could lead to more teacher resignations. And a sit-out had been planned for today, but according to the teachers, they told Fox 10 that it's been canceled since they learned new legislation makes that illegal. We'll send it back to you this morning.
All right, Irene, thank you. An update this morning on a deadly crash in Mesa we first shared with you yesterday morning.
We now know that one of the 3 people killed in that crash was just 8 years old. The crash happened just before 8 a.m. yesterday near Val Vista and Southern. Police say a 29-year-old suspect was speeding in a stolen truck when they crashed head-on into that other vehicle. A 42-year-old man along with his 6- and 8-year-old daughters were in that car. The suspect, along with the driver of the other car, Troy Garlock, died at the scene. The children were taken to the hospital where sadly that 8-year-old later died.
Within 2 seconds, I heard the woo, and then within about 3 more seconds, it was over. It was over for everybody.
And there was a 3rd car involved in that accident, but that driver was not seriously hurt. The younger daughter remains hospitalized. The family has set up a GoFundMe. If you'd like to donate, we have a link on our website. Just head on over to fox10phoenix.com.
Also developing in Mesa, a man was arrested after allegedly shooting at police during a barricade situation. This is a townhome complex near 32nd Street and Broadway. It all began when a 911 caller reported a family member acting erratically and then threatening suicide after an argument. The 39-year-old suspect fired at officers. No one was injured. His identity has not been released.
Back here in Phoenix, a law enforcement association survey showing a major lack of support for interim police chief Michael Sullivan. Over 800 members took part in the survey, with 86% believing the department is heading in the wrong direction, and 88% do not think that Sullivan should be the permanent police chief. They would prefer an internal hire. The city is currently conducting a national search for a permanent chief. China is now planning to impose some fresh tariffs that could go into effect beginning February 10th.
So how could this impact you, your wallet? ASU professor Hitendra Chaturvedi joins us now this morning. Good morning, Professor, and thank you for your time.
Good morning for having me.
Yes. What are your thoughts? And let's talk about China first. We'll get to Mexico, of course, and Canada in a few moments. Your thoughts on some of those items that could be affected and how we could be affected as consumers here in the country?
China is exporting a lot of electronic appliances and toys and games and shoes. As a matter of fact, a lot of our shoes come from China.
That's right.
So if that happens, you can start to see that increasing in price.
Now, Professor, is there any way to determine how much we could be looking at an increase on some of these products?
If they go ahead and they do a tit for tat and increase it by, say, 15%, that is the minimum price increase that you're going to see. Because supply chain, if you look at it, there are many other factors in it. So typically we have seen if a tariff is 10%, you're looking at anywhere from 15 to 20% price increase.
Is this often used, obviously it has been, we've seen it with Mexico and Canada, as a negotiating tool? And your thoughts maybe on really how well it works to negotiate with other countries?
So when we go on a full-blown trade war, imagine tariffs as being the nuke. But we are not supposed to be in a trade war with our closest allies. Mexico is now our largest trading partner. So tariffs typically where they become most effective is when we take a very targeted rifle shot approach rather than putting tariffs on tomatoes and grapes and avocados and tequilas. So tariffs should be very focused, very strategic in our national interest. Where a country is doing things to protect their industry, that's where tariffs become very, very successful. Long term, if you do a broad tariff, that's going to hurt customers like you and me with price increases.
Let me ask you another question, just kind of throwing this out here. If I was a homeowner and I'm like, you know what, I need a new stove, a new dishwasher, would you be buying those now ahead of these tariffs kind of taking effect later this month?
Assuming China tariffs are going to come in, my recommendation would be yes, because appliances, a majority of them coming from China, you're going to see a price increase.
And it's not iPhone.
And buy those new sneakers,
yeah.
Right?
That is correct.
Okay, so let's move on to some of those items from Mexico. You mentioned them briefly. Are those the list of maybe the top items that we get imported here?
Those are the grocery items, but we are importing some very, very valuable items. A lot of cars are getting made in Mexico. So there are many people who are terminating their leases in Arizona early and buying the cars in anticipation of tariffs coming in. We have a reprieve for 30 days, but supply chain and markets don't like unpredictability. They want stability. And my biggest concern is that if we don't close this and get a final answer over the next 6 months, because supply chain is already behaving like a domino, some of the sellers might end up putting in a price increase just to work so that tariffs may come in. You might start to see some price increases over the next 6 months.
Yeah, okay.